this video, we're going to work on two things that are tied together, control and sensing. Okay, so what is control? Control is a way to actually tell your program when something should happen. And in the video about events, we talked a little bit about what an event is. So here we're going to talk about more ways of doing control. So what we looked at before was when the flag is clicked or when the space key is pressed. And here you can change it from space, you can do any key on the keyboard. And that's a useful thing. So there are other types of control that we didn't talk about before, such as instead of when the sprite is clicked or when it receives something. So let's go more into the when does it receive something. I'm going to get rid of these other ones. Let's talk about what it means to have a receive and what in the world do you actually receive. So you can click on this, and when you click on the little arrow, you get when I receive what? Will I receive any message or a new message? So I'm going to make a new message. What's a message? If we're going to work on what a message is in here so that I can talk to you about how messages are sent to each other, let's think about what they are in English. Let's imagine you're playing a team sport, something like soccer. When the ball comes near you, does everybody run for the ball? Or does somebody say, mine? And then the teammates know, okay, they got the message. They know you're going to get the ball and everybody else needs to stay so they're clear for passing. And that's what a message is. So we send messages to each other in all sorts of venues, even outside of sports. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to use a paradigm called broadcast. So let's get back to the screen and look at it. So we can broadcast a message. That's this little thing over here. And you can broadcast and you can wait. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an event. When I click the flag, I'm going to broadcast a message. I'm just going to broadcast a quick message just to show you as an example. Example is my message. And then over here, I can click when I receive, and I can now click on example because it's a message. And when I receive example, what should I do? I think what I'll do is I will move 100 steps, just so you can see that this works. So when I click the flag, what should happen? What should happen is it's going to broadcast a message, example, and then it should move 100 steps when it receives it. That works. So that was just a really simple example of what a message is, but what's much more interesting is when you can actually pass messages from one sprite to another. So we so far haven't talked about having two sprites. Let's do that. I'm going to clear my program first. Okay, I want to make a second sprite. So we've not talked about this window over here yet. There's this little arrow and it says sprite. Well, I want to make a new one. I'm going to click this. I don't really want to draw it. I'm just going to make a new, as they call them, turtle. It places it in a random location and it has a new color. So I have a blue turtle and a gray turtle now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the blue turtle move around the screen and pass messages to the gray turtle and have those messages affect the gray turtle. Okay, so let's talk about one other fun thing that we can do with this. So with my gray turtle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into costumes. And we talked a little bit about costumes, and I'm just going to draw two quick costumes. They're going to be fairly boring just because they're for the purposes of making an example. So I'm going to make a square, make sure that I got the middle of the square, and then I'm going to make a circle. Whoa. Okay. And I can name these costumes. If I right-click on them, I can say rename. We're going to call that blue square, and the name matters because we're going to refer to them in a minute. We're going to call that green circle. Okay. And now I'm going to go to the script, and I'm going to have something happen. So when I click on the blue sprite, I want the other sprite to change what it's doing. So we're talking about control and message passing in this way. So when I'm clicked, let's pause there. We need to look over here and see which sprite we're writing programs for. That's something that we've not done yet before either. So I said I wanted to change the sprite's costume in the green sprite when the blue sprite's quick. So I'm going to click on the blue sprite, and you get a separate program just for that blue sprite. I'm going to tell it when I'm click, so when the blue sprite is clicked on, I'm going to broadcast a message. And I'm going to call it change costume. And when the green sprite, I'm going to click to the green sprites window, and you see it has no code. We're going to give it a control, and we're going to say when I receive change costume, we're going to go into something we haven't done before, which is go in looks, and we're going to say Actually, we're not going to say switch costume. What we're going to do is we're going to say next costume because we just want to switch back and forth. Okay? So now if we go here and we just start by clicking on here, ooh, nothing's happening. Let's look into that. What could be going on? I have seen this before, and I think it's just a little bit of a strangeness. I think if what we do is we click on the blue square and actually pick one of the two costumes, it doesn't really matter, that we drew, and then go back to our script, it's going to work. There you go. Now you can just swap costumes and broadcast messages. Okay, so we know how to change costumes, and that was just a simple thing because we wanted to look at messaging, and messaging will be much more powerful when we get to actually using it for something like a game, which I will show you in a future video. For right now, let's talk about going back to control. Now that we know what a message is, we're going to talk about the next part of the control button. So what if you want to do something repeatedly, for example? Well, you can look down here and you've got a repeat or a repeat until condition, and we're going to ignore the until for the moment. We're going to come back to that. You could do something forever, or you could repeat it a fixed number of times. Let's do a quick demo of this with just some drawing. I'm going to start a new program over since we don't really need this one. Okay, so what we're going to do, you remember our very first program when we first started drawing, we had something simple like when the flag is clicked, move. I think we had a pen too. We put the pen down. Whoops, down. And we just draw. Well, that's pretty boring because you got to click on the thing all the time. What if I just wanted to draw, how about I wanted to draw 10 times? I can use this repeat, 10, and click my flag, and it goes somewhere. We could do a demo of looping forever as well, and I want to point out that looping forever is rarely a good idea. But if you do it, and there are places where it is useful, if you do it, how do you get out of it? So there you go. Now your sprite's disappeared too. We haven't talked about how to sense that it's reached the edge of the screen. That's next. Well, it's gone. You have to click stop in order to stop your program. At this point, I want to add one more idea of doing something repeatedly. But in order to get there, you have to actually go to the new menu and then click on Import Tools. And this is going to give you a bunch more tools. Okay. So the one that I wanted to talk about real quick is the for loop. I'm going to take out the forever. I'm going to put my move block inside a for loop, and I can tell it how many times I want it to loop. And the useful thing of a for loop is that you can find out not only that you want to do something repeatedly, just like repeat 10 times, but that you can find out what number of repetition you're on, and that number can be useful for you in the future programs. I'm going to run this, but you might note that if I don't do this before I run it, you will not see anything because the sprite is way off the screen right now. So now it comes back and draws. How do you make control actually really powerful is we need to talk about all these ones that have little diamond shapes and what the diamond shapes mean. So these diamond shapes are what we're going to call conditionals, and they have to do with sensing. So let's talk about sensing and conditionals in a little bit more detail before we actually do them in the program. When you walk around the world, do you walk around with your eyes closed? I assume not. The reason you don't is you would run into things all the time. Well, that's essentially what we've been asking our sprite to do. Tell it to turn right or go forward or turn in the left direction, but not look at what it's running into. So we need to talk about how it can sense those things, and that will get us to much more powerful programs. Sensing is really powerful, and it's going to enable you to really step up your programs. And it comes hand in hand with conditionals. So let's talk about both of those together with a few examples. In our walking around example earlier, I said you could walk around with your eyes closed, but it would make much more sense to walk around and say, well, if I sense the wall, then I should turn, or then I should back up. And that's what we can work on in our programs. So related to that, we can have not only an if I sense something, then I do one thing. You can also have an if I don't sense something, then I do one thing. So you could have an if statement that says, if I sense the wall, then I back up or I turn. Otherwise, they call it else in programming, you do something else, such as keep going. So let's do an example of that in Snap. All right, let's make our program. We'll just have a really quick one. This is the easiest form of sensing. It just says, if it's on the edge, bounce. So I just dropped that into the program that we were doing before. And you'll note, well, it didn't hit the edge. So let's make it hit the edge. So it goes back and forth. Nice, simple program. Let's do something much more interesting and more complicated. So in order to do this, we need to move to the Sensing tab. Let's look at the Sensing tab because there are a lot of things that you can do. You can sense whether or not you're touching the mouse pointer, the edge of the screen, or another trail. Think about the game of Centipede where you try to move the thing around the screen but you try not to hit your own tail. You can sense whether you're touching a specific color, and if you tap on any of these, they'll actually tell you whether or not they're true or false right now, and of course they're all false. We're going to ignore these because those are for later. You can sense whether or not the mouse button is down. You can sense whether or not a key has been pressed on the keyboard. And I think we'll ignore the rest of those right now. We'll come back to them. So let's make a much more interesting demo program. Let's make a program that enables the user to draw on the screen. So it follows the mouse around, and wherever the user is clicking and dragging, it will draw. So we're gonna first we do need one that clears the screen. So we'll get rid of everything, but we'll leave the clear the screen. And then we can just leave that and we'll start with the drawing. So we'll say forever. This is an example of when forever is not necessarily such a bad thing. It's going to loop forever. And it's going to say, is the mouse down? So we're going to go back to control and we're going to say, if the mouse is down, we're going to move to that location. We're going to go, and we can go back to sensing, and one of the cool things we can get out of sensing is we can get the actual location of the mouse. So the mouse X and the mouse Y. And this will just have it should just have it follow the mouse. We're going to click the flag that should clear the screen, and then it should just follow you around. It has a few oddities. If I click the flag again, first of all, in order to stop it, it's a forever loop, so I need to stop it, right? In order to stop it, it makes this strange thing up here. And now when I start it again, it's going to draw from up there down to here. So can we solve that? Okay, so let's start by fixing this. There are a couple of things. For one thing, let's not loop forever. I told you there are very few situations where that's actually useful. Let's actually just have it loop until the user tells it to stop. Whoops. So we're going to loop until the user tells it to stop. How can we do that? We can go into sensing and we can say repeat until, and we're going to say, well, the user is going to tell it to stop when they press the S key, S for stop. So let's just try putting our program in there. Okay, I'm going to click the flag. That clears the screen. And then until the S key is pressed, it should just be dragging. Let's put a pen down in there and then we'll... Okay, I'm going to click the flag key to start it, and then it follows my mouse around. It still has an issue, so let's talk about how to solve that issue with some more control. First of all, I'm going to stop it by hitting the S key. You'll note that the program's no longer lit up. I'm going to go back to control, and what I think I want to do is instead of using an if, I want to use an if-else. And I'm going to keep my same event, so I'm just going to drag them in here. But what I want to do is, I'm going to say, if the mouse is down, then go those places that we want. But I'm going to move my pen down event in here. I'm going to move my pen down to only if the mouse is down. And I'm going to put my pen up if I let go of the mouse. Now it should draw better. And now I can move. Oh, there's still a little interesting entertainment there, but we can draw. One more thing. So let's hit S. It stops, and let's show what happens if we move, just swap the order of those two. So first you go to the place and then you put your pen down. Start over, clear the screen, it jumps and then it draws, and I can click and I can, so now I could actually do a better job of drawing the OU logo. This has been a lot of information, so I want you to go practice this and get started on the exercise using sensing and conditionals. Also note that I have posted a link to the Berkeley's course talking about looping and conditionals and sensing if you need extra information, also to the manual.